Hello, welcome to episode 19 of live.withcode.uk. This episode is focusing on how to read data from a text file. So the text file I've given you has loads of coordinates, and if we run the code to read that data from a file, it should display the outline of the country of Ukraine and display a message of solidarity. As I'm recording this, it's about a week into the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It's not a perfect outline because I just searched for a scalable vector graphic image, found one from Wikipedia. And an SVG, a scalable vector graphic, isn't like a bitmap where you can see the individual pixels if you zoom in. It's scalable. It keeps the quality because it just describes how to draw the lines and the curves. If you view the source code of an SVG, you just get loads and loads of coordinates in here. Things like move to, some coordinates, draw a curve using these coordinates. We're going to use Turtle Graphics, and Turtle Graphics doesn't let us easily draw Bezier curves. So I've had to simplify this a bit to go to integer numbers and then just straight lines instead of curves. So that's why particularly Crimea down at the bottom doesn't look quite right. But hopefully it's recognizable. All right, let's make a start with live coding so we can understand how to process this data. Just as a quick recap, remember we are working through the basics of Python. We're almost at the end of our series, and at the moment we're focusing on how to process data from a file. So this is about as hard as it gets in this series. So first of all, we want to import the turtle module so that we have a canvas to draw from. 0, 0 in coordinate spaces in the middle, and we want to make an object called t. So we'll put that in our global variables and we'll say it's going to be from the turtle module. We'll get a turtle object just so we can use it for drawing. But you know what? I think it's pretty silly saying it's nothing. Let's just make it there. There we go. That means that we can do things like go to, put some coordinates in, and it will draw a line to those coordinates. The next thing that we want to do is open a file. So I'm going to make a constant called file name, and we're going to load from ukraine.txt. You'll be pleased to know that if you're doing the complete.withcode.uk challenges, you don't have to type out all of these coordinates. That's why we put them as a separate file. And then we want to open that file. So I'll say f file is, and we'll open that file here. It's read mode, but we don't need to specify that. We'll just assume that it is in read mode. And we must remember to close the file afterwards. I've just made a global variable, so I should say that I've got one here. I'm going to set it to nothing, or sometimes you can set it to an empty string. Sometimes you see that in Edexcel GCC Computer Science. But we should get into the habit of saying this is going to be a global variable if we're going to make one. So how do we read from a file? Well, we can just do f.read. That gets the whole file. And then I want to split it every time we get to a new line. That will give us a list containing a string of each line separately. So we can store that list as lines. So let's say I've got a new global variable called lines, set it to an empty list. And then we should be able to iterate through that list by doing for line in lines. And we can just print it for now. So we should be able to see each line separately. Fab. I've made a new global variable. I should declare that here. It's going to be a string this time because it's going to be the contents of any line individually. Okay, so sometimes it's going to be a coordinate if it's got a comma in. Sometimes it's going to be a color if it's only got one value and no comma. And sometimes it's a blank line. And the blank line means stop drawing and fill in that shape. So we need to put that logic into our code. First of all, we'll deal with the colors. So how can we do that? We'll say if the line contains a comma, so the best way I can think of doing that is by saying if a comma is in the line, then we want to extract x and y. So we can do line.split, as in get the values on the left of the comma and the values on the right of the comma. We'll get that as a list, and we can unpack that list to say the first value in the list is x, the second value in the list is going to be y. So for now, let's just do t.goto x, y, and see what we get. So we will be able to get the coordinates now, but we've got a couple of problems. We haven't got the right colours, and instead of teleporting to the first point, it draws a line to the first point. But we're getting somewhere. I want to be able to get the colours next, so let's see. If we haven't found a comma in the line, then we'll assume that it's a colour. So let's see. Let's put some comments in. Extract x and y coordinates. I always like a blank line above the comments to make it clear that the comment refers to the line underneath. Let's say assume anything else is a colour. So how do we get a colour? Well, we've already got the colour in line. That's a string from the current line. So we should just be able to say t.color, spelled the American way, because it's a built-in function from the turtle module. And we'll set it to the value of the line. I'm also going to lift up the pen at this point, because we get the colour before we start drawing. Then we can lift up the pen so that we don't teleport, so that we can teleport down. But we then must remember, see it's changed to orange or yellow, I must remember to put the pen back down again. So how can we do that? Well, I'm going to keep track of whether or not we're drawing the first point. And we'll say that when the program begins, first point is going to be true. We haven't drawn a point yet. And then in here, we can say if it's the first point, and we've just teleported to that first point, at that point, we can put the pen down. Oops, I think it's pen down without a underscore. And we can also begin filling. And very importantly, we can say it's no longer the first point. So we'll set that to false. So let's say treat the first point differently so that we can begin filling in the shape. All right, what's going to happen? So now we teleport to the first point, we put the pen down and we draw. But it doesn't seem to be putting the pen back down again in the right place. That's rather irritating. How can we fix that? I guess in here we can say if we haven't got a comma in the line and it's not an empty line, but it is it is an empty line, then at this point we can just stop filling in our shape, as in actually fill it in. What have I done here? Bad input on line 49 because the elif needs to line up with line 30, which it does, or at least it should. Oh, I haven't said what is equal to an empty line. There we go. Let's see if that works. We're drawing the top part of Ukraine. We fill it in. We should be drawing the bottom part, but we don't seem to have put the pen back down again. And I think that's probably because if we set the colour, we need to say first point is true again. So the next point is going to be the first point. So we can put the pen back down. Yeah, there we go. So we've got the shape. Now what I want to do is transform it and scale it so it goes to a different place. So I'll make a constant up here called, what should we call it? Offset x. And I don't know what we should set it at. We'll just do some trial and error. I'll go for, I've tried this out before, I've gone for 140 minus 140. And offset y is going to be 100. Then, where are we? Where you've got the x and the y coordinates, we can say x is going to be equal to the value that we got from the file plus our offset. Do we call it offset x or x offset? Can't remember. I think it was like this. It's probably going to fail here because we can't concatenate two data types that are different types. So I need to convert this one to an integer first so we can do that x offset. And I also want to do the same thing for y. So the new value of y is the value of y we get from a file plus our y offset, so we can draw it a little bit higher up. It doesn't quite fill the screen, so I'm going to put a scale factor in here so we can stretch it out a little bit. So again, I'll make a scale for x and a scale for y. So we can just multiply the values. So I'm going to go for 1.4 for x and 1.8 for y because it looks a little bit squished to me. I don't know why. You can experiment and see what works for you. So we'll apply the scale factor here. We'll say x equals x times the scale factor. And scale x, isn't it? And we'll do the same for y. So that it should multiply each value of x by 1.4, I think I said, and each value of y by 1.8, so it fills most of the canvas. So we're getting there now. All I'm going to do is add in a little bit of text. I won't go through all of the details of that. I will explain it a little bit. I've just put down here that we've lifted the pen up, we've gone to a position, and we've drawn some text with a certain font and a certain size, so that hopefully we can display our message of solidarity. So what's the most important thing to recap here? Well, first of all, you can load any data that you like from a text file as long as you tell Python how to interpret it. So the important thing is opening a file, iterating through each line of the file, splitting a line with a character, so in my case it was a comma, and then accessing each value so that you can do something useful with it. I've got some challenges on here. You could try doing this in two ways. You could either try and draw it with your code up here, so a for loop maybe to repeat 4 times, move forwards by 400, turn right by 90, and then fill in. Or if you wanted, you could put your black rectangle right at the top in here and say black is going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then you could try putting in some coordinates like minus 400 for the top left, etc. and try it out, whatever works for you. Make the text bigger and change the font. That's just changing these parameters here, and adjust the offset and scale so that the image is in the middle of the screen. That just means changing these constants in here. So I hope this has been helpful. Remember that you can find links in the description of this video, or on live.withcode.uk, or on compete.withcode.uk if your school's signed up for the free competitive challenges. I hope this is useful. I will see you for the final one of the series next week, where we go through the basics of Python and how to optimize your code. Bye-bye.